Is it just me, or has the Super Bowl halftime show kind of become like the new Groundhog Day, where if a certain group of people actually likes the performance, we're going to have an early spring. But typically, a certain group of people doesn't like the performance, so we've got 6 more weeks of winter. You know, a lot of people compare every Super Bowl halftime show to the Prince performance, and that's just setting yourself up for disappointment because that was the greatest. I don't think many would argue that. And he's dead, and he's not going to do it anymore. So you're never going to see one that great. You witnessed greatness in your lifetime. Consider yourself fortunate. You know, I think you could dig Elvis up and resurrect him as like Jailhouse Rock Elvis. He could do the halftime show, and it still wouldn't be as good as what Prince did. So, cool your heels. You're never going to like the Super Bowl halftime show from here on out. It's going to disappoint you, folks. I've done this video so many times. We're going to talk about the cancel culture and DJs today with certain songs for certain reasons. But it's topical again, so we're going to do it again. And by the way, we're going to include this in our Tuesday DJ Gig Tip series. And I know it's a Wednesday, but we missed it yesterday. So, welcome to Tuesday DJ Gig Tips, brought to you by Vibo, the music planning app. So the reason this is topical is because in my social media feed, there's been a lot of people who didn't like the halftime show performance, but one of my friends, who is a friend of mine, and I like him and I respect him. I don't always agree with him, but I don't always hang around with people I agree with. I really can't tell you that I have a lot of friends who I absolutely agree with. I keep a pretty diverse group of friends, regardless of our differences. But yeah, he didn't like it because he felt like that it was promoting satanic worship, like some of the imagery. By the way, I didn't see the halftime show. I just saw pictures, and I see that Sam Smith had horns on, and Rihanna was dressed in Rihanna. Is it Rihanna, right? Or is it Rhiannon? I don't even know. Rhiannon, I know, is a Fleetwood Mac song. We'll talk about them a little later in the video. But anyway, yeah, devil worship. So he's deleting that from his catalog. And a lot of other artists, because he feels like, you know, morally, he shouldn't be playing them. There's plenty of other songs he could be playing instead of them. So he's decided to cancel them. Cancel culture, it's a thing, right? I mean, you hear a lot about it in the media, cancel culture. But I think I smell something fishy here, because I'll tell you what my experience is with this. There have been red flag artists that have popped up. First, in recent memory, was Michael Jackson, when all the accusations came out. It was all over the media that this was a bad thing. And I think a lot of radio stations stopped playing Michael Jackson songs, because they're commercial radio stations, and they're worried that the sponsors may be concerned. Baby It's Cold Outside, remember that whole thing? They felt like that song was rapey, so radio stations weren't going to be playing it anymore. R. Kelly, with the terrible things that he's done, yeah, hey, maybe we shouldn't play R. Kelly anymore. Elvis has come up with what, you know, his relationship with Priscilla. People are suspect of that. Jerry Lee Lewis was a thing. There's always something, right? Where maybe commercially, a lot of people may not want to mess with an artist because, you know, well, hey, maybe the sponsors might be concerned it might offend somebody. Okay. Reality comes in with private events, though. Because, you know, I don't think this whole cancel artist thing is as widespread as you might think. And here's why I think this. I remember when Crank That Soulja Boy came out. If you know what that song is, if you've ever heard the unedited version of that song, I think it's kind of gross. And it's definitely not for kids. I was doing an elementary school, and a parent wanted me to play this song for their kindergartner because it was his favorite song, because he mentions Superman in the song, and he loves Superman. Well, I didn't want to play it. I'm like, I don't think this is appropriate for kindergartners, you know? Even the edited version. Kind of creepy to play for little kids, you know? She complained to the principal. The principal came to me very upset about this. By the way, this is a parochial school. This was a Catholic school. I played Soulja Boy. All the little kids danced and were happy. Learned my lesson that day. I don't want to be the moral police, you know? So I adopted a new policy from that day on. If the FCC approves of a song, then I'll play it unless the client tells me otherwise. And when I meet with clients and we talk about music and content, I tell them that my songs are FCC approved, which they are because I'm getting them from Top Hits USA and promo only. I'm playing the radio edits. So if it's good for the radio, I'll play it unless you have any objections. That's what I'm going to be doing. And nobody seems to have a problem with that. Now, when it comes to specific artists like the Michael Jackson thing, when that whole thing hit and it was hot, it was really hot, I made a decision not to just play Michael Jackson. Because there is plenty of other stuff I could be playing. Of course there is. But clients would request it. So I would play it. And eventually that cooled off and Michael Jackson gets played. Same thing with R. Kelly. I mean, that's relatively recent. He was just sentenced recently. And some of the things he did were terrible. Terrible things. And then all our radio stations don't play him anymore. But people still request Step in the Name of Love and the Ignition remix. Clients ask for it. They don't seem to be too worried about this stuff. Elvis. I'm not playing a lot of Elvis anymore anyway. I mean, that crowd has kind of gone away in America. I know Elvis is hot in the rest of the world, but in America, not so much. Not so much. The Elvis crowd's kind of gone away. I play less and less 50s music every year. I mean, I barely played any last year. I do play some 60s, but not a lot. It's typically 70s up. Who else? I don't know. Okay, I mentioned Fleetwood Mac earlier, right? I don't play a lot of Fleetwood Mac. I mean, who does, right? But sometimes you do play it because maybe you're doing dinner or cocktail and it's a yacht rock thing. I have played Landslide and things like that for requests for maybe a father-daughter dance or something, or mother-son dance. One song that I do avoid by Fleetwood Mac, it's never asked for, but I just avoid it, even when I'm just doing chill sets, is Don't Stop. The reason I don't play that song is because that was like a big song for the Clinton campaign back in the early 90s, and it was kind of associated with Bill Clinton. And I don't want to get political with anybody. I don't want to trigger any of that kind of conversation. So I just don't play it. Not like it's requested, but I just don't play it, you know. But if somebody asks for it, maybe I'd play it, you know. So that's kind of how I do it. You know, I typically, some artists I will avoid if I think there's a problem until it's requested. And usually, if I hold back on an artist like Michael Jackson or R. Kelly or something like that for an extended period of time and eventually it does get requested and I play it, it's a floor filler. I like to separate artistry from personal life. And, you know, I'll just say something about this whole satanic worship thing that some people may be accusing the halftime performers of promoting. Artists being accused of satanic worship or promoting satanic things is nothing new. This goes way back to the beginning of rock and roll. I know the Beatles were accused of it. I know the Stones were accused of it. They denied it. But then you have artists like Kiss who were pretty blatant about it. And Ozzy Osbourne, right? It didn't hurt them. It was actually good for them. Kiss ended up on children's lunchboxes. There were action figures and games. Look, between George Lucas doing, you know, merchandising for Star Wars and Gene Simmons doing merchandising for Kiss, those are fortunes that were made. But yeah, this is nothing new. This is nothing new. It's been happening for a very, very long time. And I understand if you have moral objections to certain songs, because I have. But I think it's really difficult for us to really effectively be the moral police for our audiences, regardless as to what the media is telling you. People don't like this. People don't like that. Really? Because at my events, they like it. Because they're asking for it. And no one's stomping out of the room offended by it. So, I don't know. Pay attention to what's going on with your audience, not what's being said in the media or even social media. Pay attention to your audience. Respect your audience. Your audience can make their own choices, I think. And you can too. And you can definitely proceed with caution on things, but to outright refuse to play things for a client because you have a moral objection to it, you might want to rethink the business you're in, because that might not work out well for you. Just my 2 cents on it. That's it. I'll turn this camera off. Thanks for watching. This is a long enough video. Wow. Over 11 minutes. I'm sure I missed some stuff, but that's more than enough. And I'm not telling you how to think or how to do things. I'm just telling you how I approach them. And yeah, sometimes I proceed with caution. But ultimately, I play to my audience. That's it. We'll see you next time. Practice and enjoy.